So now, oh, good. Thank you. Great. That's smart of you. Um, so now we're going to talk about Sterling A. Brown. After this, I think we're going to go to Elizabeth Bishop and then Robert Lowell. And we'll just keep moving our way through poetry, having a good time. So Sterling A. Brown is also probably somebody that you didn't hear of, coming up through our education as English majors or science majors or whatever at Pomona College. Um, and that's partly because for a large part of his life, he wasn't publishing poetry. He was born in 1901 on the campus of Howard University, which of course is a all-black university where his father had been a former slave and had now risen to become a minister and professor of theology at Harvard Divinity School. So that's pretty amazing.
Divinity.
Howard, yeah, Howard Divinity School, sorry.
I wish Harvard had been that enlightened at
I
that
know, but
time.
Harvard eventually did give him an honorary degree.
Yeah.
So his mom also was a public school teacher in DC and taught for more than 50 years. He grew up on a farm in Howard County, Maryland. He was a really excellent student, and as the top student in his high school class, he received a full scholarship to go to Williams College, which of course was, very prestigious. But the problem was that they segregated their black students theoretically, because they didn't want them being, hassled by the white students. But this was really painful for Brown, who felt very set off and excluded. He did have a professor named George Dutton, who was very influential for him and kind of, he felt, advised him to pay attention to the language that was actually the language of his people rather than just, sort of, quote, acceptable poetic diction coming down through the white tradition.
What year was this that he was in school?
He graduated in 1922, Phi Beta Kappa, and received his master's degree from Howard in 1923. He never did go on to want a PhD, and he began to teach. He went down south for a while, taught um, in the South for a while at Lincoln University and Fisk University, which are two historically black colleges and universities. And then he went back to Howard, where he taught for 40 years. By this time, he had married a woman named Daisy Turnbull, and they had one adopted son named Jonathan. In 1932, so when he was in the South, he got really interested in Southern Black voices. He got really interested in work songs, folkways, blues, spirituals, jive talking. He was studying all these things, doing serious research and talking to people. People liked to talk to him because he was very easygoing and fun to talk to. So they would tell him stories and they would, sing for him and stuff like that. So when he came back, he was working on poetry. In 1932, he published his book, Southern Road. And that's a real turning point for African American literature because, it brought all these voices to public attention, voices that had not been sort of brought forward into the public readership. But times were too early. He couldn't find a publisher for his next book, nor would Harcourt Brace agree to republish Southern Road because they said, no, it won't sell enough copies. So instead, he turned to research, he turned to journalism, scholarship, and he published a lot of essays. He co-edited a major book. First I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay, he was associated with the Harlem Renaissance. Do y'all know what the Harlem Renaissance was? Yeah. Okay. So writers like Zora Neale Hurston, Jean Toomer, Langston Hughes, Alain Locke, and so on in Harlem, obviously, and really working to sort of like Williams and his friends did among mostly white people, working to really foment a renaissance in the arts, in all different forms of arts. But this was for African American voices. Um,
And when he was publishing scholarly things, you say he wrote a lot of research. Was he
mhm.
accepted in the established journals, or was that discriminated against as well?
Well, some of both. Let me just tell you about. So he published um, in 1938 a book called Negro Poetry and Drama, and also The Negro in American Fiction. And then in 1941, he and two other co-editors edited and published a book called The Negro Caravan, which has been called, quote, the most important single volume of Black writing ever published in this country, as it, quote, defined the field of African American literature as a scholarly and academic discipline. And that last quotation was according to Ebony magazine. So, gradually, Sterling A. Brown, he was a really highly respected scholar, and he started to gain a wider and wider audience among white scholarship as well as African American scholarship. Um, he received many honorary degrees, including from Howard, from Williams, from Yale, from Harvard. I mean, something like 13 honorary degrees over the course of his lifetime. So, he really became widely known as a major figure, a major scholar. And then interest came back to life in his poetry, so that in 1981, I think it was, he published collected poems of Sterling A. Brown. And this received the Lenore Marshall Poetry Prize, which is a huge poetry prize, in 1982. In 1984, he was named Poet Laureate of DC, and he died in 1989. So what's so interesting to me is the um, sort of really seriousness of his academic range, his commitment, and the way he spans, from really, quote, high poetic diction to, quote, low poetic diction. Those are not meant as value terms, but they describe the degree of formality and Latinisms in poetry as opposed to the degree of, oral culture and forms like the blues or spoken word, things like that. So he's a very interesting figure to me. Peter said that his parents saw Sterling A. Brown on TV once. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
There's not much to say because I didn't see him. They were very enthusiastic about him. And I knew that there were some prominent black writers that my mother didn't like. She didn't like Langston Hughes. She didn't like Ishmael Reed. And I was young and thought of myself as radical and kind of reacted to thinking, oh, he must be sort of middle of the road and easy to take. And, that's the opposite of the truth.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
He was very hard hitting and very much more connected, I think, to black culture, in its roots, let's say. Not necessarily more than Hughes. I think he was a better poet than Hughes, but more than many prominent black writers of the time. And also, I just wanted to say he was not that crazy about the term Harlem Renaissance. He called it the New Negro Movement, and others called it that too. It wasn't his own name for it. And he said, uh, this is, I think, a direct quotation. Harlem was, quote, the show window, the cashier's till. That
oh,
is, there was a movement all over
mm.
America, including in Harlem,
Yeah.
but Harlem was where white people got it or bought it or became interested in it. So neither he nor Gene Toomer, certainly two of the most talented black writers of that time, had much to do with Harlem. Washington was their city to the extent that they belonged to a city.
Can I ask a couple of questions about that? One is what your mom didn't like about Langston Hughes, and secondly, the Harlem Renaissance. One of the things relevant to what you just said about DC is I suspect I don't know this about DC, but I know in New York, Duke Ellington played at the Cotton Club, and there were black dancers. White people went to the Cotton Club,
Yeah.
so
Right.
you'd go. It wasn't like black people couldn't afford, and I'm not even sure were admitted to the Cotton Club. And so the Black Renaissance was kind of an interesting, weird
Mhm.
mix of things. Anyway, what did your mom not like about?
I
Uh,
don't know. I don't know.
okay,
I think some of Hughes's poems, like "The Negro Speaks of Rivers" and "Theme for English B," are overrated. I also think he read a couple of very strong short poems, including the one that begins "What happens to a dream deferred." But we didn't discuss him generally. She just mentioned that. Ishmael Reed, I think she thought of as a charlatan, and I really don't think she was wrong in that. But I don't know how she felt about Langston Hughes. And I was not open enough to, well, what was it that was so interesting about Sterling Brown?
Oh,
Um, you know,
Tony, did you see what Otis just?
Yeah, let me do that for you, Otis. I will screen share, but I can also send them to you.
Thank
Yeah.
you very much. I have no idea what happened to it. My computer is
Okay.
acting up. It doesn't like
All
some of
right.
this work.
Tell your computer to get with the times.
I think so.
my parents liked jazz. They listened to jazz. They weren't very interested in rock until Bob Dylan. And they really didn't listen to blues much unless it was like, and that area where it's hard to tell what's blues and what's jazz.
So let's do screen sharing. So what's so exciting to me about Sterling A. Brown is it's like he just opens the door to all this, cultural work that's going on that is the work of people living their lives in the South and that people just absolutely weren't aware of. It's like it wasn't getting disseminated, it wasn't getting listened to, it wasn't getting read, it wasn't getting recognized, you know. So there's been, I mean, it's just exciting to me living here because there's so much of oral culture around us, and it's so rich and it's so interesting. Did you guys get a chance to listen to that, the one link that I gave you to listen to? Because if not, I want us to listen to it now.
Please
Tony's
do.
up
Oh,
screen sharing. It won't hurt to listen to it again. It's
uh,
just,
I'm sorry.
can you screen
I
share?
I was well. I could do that, but Otis, I won't be able to send this till after the chat doesn't let me do it while we're
Yeah, I'll do
viewing it.
it. I'll do it at the end. It's okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
You
Okay.
okay, thank
All
keep
you.
right. Thanks.
looking at
I'm going to
screen
do
Yeah.
it
I
share.
right
appreciate
now.
it.
I'll do it, Otis. I have a
Oh,
copy. I'll send it.
okay,
Okay.
thanks, Laura. That'd be great.
Okay.
Okay, let's go down. Well, first of all, let's look at this poem briefly. Return. This is an early poem, and I wanted to give it to you because, like William Carlos Williams, Sterling A. Brown went through a 180-degree turn in his poetic voice between his very first work and then what he became. Return. I have gone back in boyish wonderment to things that I had foolishly put by, have found an alien and unknown content in seeing how some bits of cloud-filled sky are framed in bracken pools. Through chuckling hours have watched the antic frogs, or curiously have numbered all the unnamed vagrant flowers that fleck the unkempt meadows lavishly, or where a headlong toppling stream has stayed its racing, lulled to quiet by the song bursting from out the thick-leaved oaken shade. There I have lain while hours sauntered past. I have found peacefulness somewhere at last, have found a quiet needed for so long. So that was from a book edited by the African American poet County Cullen, who took six of Sterling A. Brown's early poems. And you can hear that voice. It's a, late Victorian or Edwardian voice. It's very, very decorous, very polysyllabic, kind of vague, boyish wonderment, alien and unknown content you know, chuckling hours through chuckling hours have watched the antic frogs. It's like it doesn't touch down much on what most people experience as the actual world, you know, but it's touching because already as a young man, he's referring to needing a sense of quiet. And then we think about him, at Williams College being segregated because he's black, and we think about the racism that's all around him in his so there's obviously genuine feeling here, but it's not coming through, and a voice isn't coming through. There I have lain while hours sauntered past. Whew, that's also like some of T.S. Eliot's really early poetry. praising, the flowering eglantine and things like that. So this is we're seeing poets who are dedicated to poetry and who haven't yet claimed their own voice. And when they do claim their own voice, there's this revolution in poetry. It's like it just is so exciting and it's so dramatic a difference. So any comments
I,
on this one?
yeah, yeah. I, for some reason, I mean, I thought this was a poem kind of an old man, and then I saw he was young when he wrote it, and then it reminded me of Dylan Thomas's Rage Against the Dying of, don't go gentle into that good night, and also Wordsworth's Intimations of Immortality, which I think he also wrote as a relatively young man. So you've got these three guys talking about basically the way I feel, and I'm 79, and yet they're all relatively young when they write these things. I
Yeah.
I I'm puzzled at the psychology of that.
Yeah. Yep.
Well,
Well,
I find what's interesting is the lack of conflict. He's just having this recollection and kind of enjoying painting the word picture of it, and when he's done, he's done.
yeah. It's a sonnet. It's not that great a sonnet. It's got the traditional sonnet form, you know, the octave and then the sestet, the turn. But you're right, it's very tame. It's very kind of mellow in this, it's very old fashioned. Tony, I can see why you feel like it's an old geezer looking back, gone back in boyish wonderment. I mean, this is a guy who's like in his 20s. So sure, he
Yeah.
should be still feeling boyish wonderment, Leslie?
I get these. I have three different poetry blogs that I get every day, and a lot of the times the ones are of Black poets, both women and men, from about this time. And without even looking at who wrote it, I can tell from the diction that it's somebody trying very hard to show
Yeah.
that they have absorbed
Yeah.
that Victorian Edwardian culture. And
Yeah.
so I think he was doing that thing that most of the writers of his time, especially Black writers, would have been doing.
Yeah.
And County Cullen published it. County Cullen is completely like that, never got beyond it, except I think in one poem where there's a little boy who uses an ugly racial epithet at
Yeah.
him on
While
a train.
walking in old
And
Baltimore,
that's
head
more
high, half
immediate.
filled with glee, I saw
Yeah.
a Baltimorean kept looking
Yeah,
straight at me. That
yeah.
one.
That one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Do
that's
you
a good poem.
Yeah. So
do
it's
you
touching. Go ahead.
do you think there was a self-conscious effort to
Oh, yeah.
appeal to white upper,
Wanting to be,
educated audiences?
well, wanting to be part of, quote, the tradition.
I
Wanting,
think
go ahead.
I think it's more a sense of that's what poetry was, because the Georgian poets in England, many of them were doing that too.
Yeah.
And, some of them ended up being original, really good poets like Edward Thomas or D.H. Lawrence, but most of them didn't.
Yeah. But also just think, I mean, this is already a highly educated, light-skinned black guy. His father's a professor, his mother is a teacher, you know, and so he, in a certain way, is part of this tradition, this educated tradition. There's a word dicty. Do you know what dicty means?
Mm-mm.
It means a little fancy dancy as a black person, like, kind of giving yourself airs a little bit, wanting to class out, which is another saying, which means you don't want to be appeared to be low class. You don't want to be appeared to be, one of them. You want to look kind of better than. Yeah, Laurel?
Yeah, this almost reads to me like something he wrote either when he was finishing up at Williams or not too long afterward, thinking about what he had encountered in poetry there. But the other thing is he grew up on a farm and he's really, I think, thinking of longing for
Yeah,
that,
Mhm.
the
the
childhood.
frogs, the
And,
frogs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and I think Wordsworth writes in that same vein, and some of the other romantics that your childhood and nature, and
Yeah.
especially if he has then come to say graduate school, Howard or whatever, he's back in the city, but the longing for not just nature, but the sort of untroubled
Yeah,
childhood part, and
absolutely.
but it feels to me almost like I won't say a homework assignment, but someone seriously trying to
Yeah,
take what he has learned or encountered in classical poetry,
yeah,
but
right.
put his own um, experience in and his own childhood description.
Yeah, Brian.
and
I found
I'm
the incessant iambic pentameter a little tiring. He
Mhm.
doesn't spring the rhythms as often as one might wish. The
Yeah,
bursting and I uh, are change the rhythms, but it's sort of working like a clock.
yeah,
I think what's
exactly.
being expressed is very interesting. Um, um, but I think it's a little still school bookish.
Yes, absolutely. That's nice. Yeah, so what's interesting to me about this poem is not that I think it's a good poem, it's that there's so much that's at stake in this poem. There's a claim that's being made to being a poet. There's, as Laura says, experience that's longed for. Like to me, the most vivid part of the whole thing is the frogs, because they're actually making noise and they're not doing dee-dum, dee-dum, dee-dum. They're like, "Rah, rah," like that. Um, and it's a young person sounding weary, but obviously there is a sense of weariness here. There is a sense of loss here, and longing. So it's doing some really important kind of psychological work, even though it's not a good poet. I just have to say this. So as poet laureate, I just finished dealing with 354 poems written by kindergarten through 12th graders in the state of
I,
Mississippi. And you'd be amazed how many of them write poetry like this. You know, they think you have to rhyme. They think you have to be like, I love nature so much. I love its very touch. Oh, as the leaves fall by, I could sit down and cry, and you're like, oh no. So anybody who does anything different or actually touches down to their own experience, automatic prize winner, you know?
well, that takes some nerve and self-confidence to speak with your own voice
Yeah.
and step outside the tradition. And you probably don't have that when you're young.
No,
I'm
some of
I'm
them
thinking
do.
of I don't want to go on and on here, but I want to. But Ray Charles started out sounding like Nat King Cole because Nat
Yeah.
King Cole was an established star, and it
Yeah.
took some nerve to establish his own style. And Motown put out they I think the Temptations put out a Broadway songs album, and they wanted to establish themselves as legitimate performers because when they were making records, it was still
Yeah.
uh, not quite acceptable to be a black artist, and they wanted to establish themselves as a legitimate artist.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's scroll down. So I want to now listen to this Old Limb, the song. So keep going till we get to Old Limb, okay? Because there's the link at the bottom of it. Here we go. So it's the link. So keep going till we get to the link.
Oh, okay.
That. Okay, so can we listen to that?
I think so.
I hope.
You hear that?
Mm-mm.
No?
Nothing yet.
Uh, wait a second. I think there's something I have to do on Zoom to do this. This is something I have to go through for McAtee, so I should know how to do it, but just give me a second here. Uh, you know, I think it's going to take me a minute to figure this out because
Maybe
there
we
is
should.
something you could go to and share sound, but I don't know where it is, and
Okay.
I don't want to stall everything.
Right. Okay. Well, let's not worry about it. Let's scroll back up. But I encourage you guys to please listen to this if you didn't listen to it. It's really amazing. Cornelius Eady is an African American poet who just loves Sterling Brown, and he's got this
Yeah, geez.
music group, and he's a really, really good performer. This is a very exciting song, the way he does it.
Oh my God.
Okay, well, let's just go back up and we'll deal with
Are you
us.
seeing that poem now?
Yeah,
Okay.
up. But I don't want to read this poem. I want you to listen to Cornelius Evie.
Uh,
So go back up to Ma Rainey.
oh, Ma Rainey. Okay. Listen, I'll try to send that link to you guys after we meet because I
Oh,
can't
the
figure
link
out.
is no, I've sent the link.
The
If
link's on
Oh,
the
okay.
that's
poems.
the link.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Fair enough.
So, Tony, were you just wondering how you changed the sound over to music for hearing music on Zoom? Because you do
Yeah.
that.
How do you share the sound?
Well, I think maybe we all have to go down by our audio icon, and you got the little upward arrow, and there's one original sound for musicians.
Oh,
But I
Let
don't
me
know
see.
if that would do it. And then it's hard
Okay.
to get, then you have to go back, otherwise, then you won't hear each other.
If I click on I've got the page open on my computer now,
yeah,
and
click on that. See what
if I
happens.
click on play, it should come through just as if I were speaking, right? Should we try
Okay.
that?
Well, we'll see. That's what I did.
Let's try it.
Should we should we click on original sound for musicians?
At your own peril, because then you need to know which one to go back to.
It sounds like that's not working, huh?
Can you
No,
No,
hear it, but we
we're
can't hear it?
Okay, all right.
Oh, rats.
yeah.
Gonna be a great
I'm
thing.
sorry. And if you need to do that in the future, please give me an advance warning. I just don't know how to do it, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I thought it'd be simple, simple, easy peasy, but not. Sorry. Okay, well, let's just go back up to scroll up, okay, Tony?
Uh, I have to get back to this. You see
Mhm.
it?
Yeah, now we're going up. Keep
Okay.
going. Go
Oh,
up to
okay.
Mulroney more. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so you can hear the difference here, right? And this is somebody, within the same few years of writing that first poem, he goes down south, he starts listening to people. He starts paying attention to what he hears, and this is what comes out. Ma Rainey, one. When Ma Rainey comes to town, folks from any place miles around, from Cape Girardeau, Poplar Bluff, flux into here, Ma do her stuff. Comes flivering in, or riding mules, or packed in trains, picnicking fools. That's what it's like from miles on down to New Orleans Delta and Mobile Town when Ma hits anywheres around. Two, it comes to hear Ma Rainey from the Little River settlements, from Black Bottom cornrows and
I'm in
from
my class here.
they stumble into hall just a laughing and a cackling, cheering like roaring water, like wind in river swamps. And some jokers keeps their laughs a going into crowded aisles, and some folks sits there waiting with their aches and miseries till Ma comes out before 'em, a smiling gold tooth smiles, and Longboy ripples minors on the black and yellow keys. Three. Oh, Ma Rainey, sing your song. Now you's back where you belong. Get way inside us, keep us strong. Oh, Ma Rainey, lil and low, sing us 'bout the hard luck around our door. Sing us 'bout the lonesome road we must go. Four. I talked to a fellow, and the fellow say she just catch hold of us some kind of way. She sang backwater blues one day. It rained for days, and the skies was dark as night. Trouble taking place in the lowlands at night. Thundered and lightened, and the storm began to roll. Thousands of people ain't got no place to go. Then I went and stood upon some high old lonesome hill and looked down on the place where I used to live. And then the folks, they naturally bowed their heads and cried, bowed their heavy heads, shut their mouths up tight and cried. And Ma left the stage and followed some folks outside. There wasn't much more the fella say. She just gets hold of us that away. What year was the Great Flood?
1927.
1927, when the Mississippi flooded And tell the history about the treatment of the blacks that way.
There's a really good book about it. Some of you may have read it, called Rising Tide by John M. Barry. And one of the things that happened was they had to reinforce the levees with sandbags. And Leroy Percy, who was a Democratic senator from Mississippi, and who was an enemy longstanding of the Ku Klux Klan, and in a paternalistic way, treated his black workers well. Um, had a number of men, mostly black or maybe even all black, out on the levees, with insufficient protection against the weather, insufficient food, and they were supposed to stay on the levees because it was an emergency and they had to, reinforce the levees. At any rate, um, that was only one of many things that made black people at that time disillusioned with the Deep South. But the Great Migration to the North either began or got a terrific impetus after 1927, but then the Great Depression began in 1929, so that gave it an even bigger impetus.
Yeah.
So I don't know how, strong an effect that had. And, it was a genuine emergency. Leroy Percy was not a bad guy. He was an idealist in his way, but he belonged to the old South, really. So
Black
that's
people died. A lot
part
of
of the
black people
story.
died.
Well, yeah, but I mean, that wasn't his fault.
It was his fault because
The,
he left him on a levee.
no, a lot of them did not die on the levee. They died when the levees broke and the lowlands were flooded, and the areas that were flooded were disproportionately black areas. That's true. It's also true that with New Orleans, when they were worried about flooding of the city, the rich and powerful of New Orleans decided to divert the water, even after they were told there was no real danger anymore, into a low-lying parish, either Plaquemines or Bernard, that was mainly inhabited by poor white people. So the class divisions and the race divisions were both real, and they weren't the same division. But the flood showed up a lot of things. And among other things, it showed that levees alone were not the way to deal with the river. And ironically, both the great 19th century engineers, James Buchanan Eads and I think William Humphreys Atkinson, who disagreed about everything else, agreed that levees were not the only way to keep the river under control and prevent, loss of life, loss of farmland, and stuff like that. It's a pretty complex
Thank
book.
you, honey. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I, I read that Barry book, and I couldn't have done as well of a job. I mean, that was great to recount it because I kind of forgot it. I must have read it 30 or 40 years ago, or I don't know how long. He might be still alive. It wasn't
I think
written
he
in
is.
the 20s.
I read it
Yeah,
only about 10 years ago.
yeah.
Um, and he was here at one point in the late 1990s at the conference for the book and talking, I think, very complacently about the climate crisis.
Yeah.
Um, and he then wrote a book about the flu epidemic, and
Yeah, about the flu, right.
not as good a book as Rising Tide by quite a lot.
So, do people have comments about this poem?
Oh, yeah, back to the poem.
Yeah.
Well, obviously he's now in the vernacular clearly, and Ma Rainey, big person in music, significant. Well, in fact, didn't she do the original Hound Dog?
Oh, I
Yeah,
think so.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
think so.
Yeah. What's great is the kind of same as with the Black church in the South, the consolation, that the community gains through listening to this music. It's really pretty moving. And depicting all the people coming from all the places, Cape Girardeau, Poplar Bluff, which is in Arkansas, a horrible place, Cape Girardeau in Missouri, New Orleans Delta, all these Mobile, Alabama. She's traveling around, and all these people come to hear her sing, and they're bringing their miseries and their, tired feet and their lonesome road with them, and then she can just hearten them. She can just, sort of tell it like it is. And Long Boy ripples minors on the black and yellow keys. That's pretty cool. Yeah.
What is black bottorn cornrows?
What?
Must be Black Bottom.
Black
Oh,
bottom
is it?
cornrows. Black
Okay,
bottom
that's
cornrows.
It's a typo.
it's a
Oh,
typo. Okay.
oh, is it? Oh, yeah, it is. I didn't type it. It's the typo on the part of the wherever I took it from. But it's, yeah, black bottom cornrows. I didn't even see that as not an M. Yeah, crazy.
Thought
Uh,
it was, I really enjoyed this poem. I thought it was interesting how the music was almost, it had a spiritual quality for the listeners. It was almost like a traveling preacher coming to town
yeah,
to bring them spiritual sustenance. And it was really, really moving. It was really good. I liked it a lot.
yeah, me too. Y'all have read Huckleberry Finn. Remember when they're going down by Arkansas? This is like that part of the world, you know, pretty muddy, pretty depressed, pretty basic. And these are where the people are coming. Yeah.
And
Have
there's
you read the book James by
I have
Percival
not.
Everett?
I
Yeah.
have.
It it's a story of Huckleberry Finn, but told on the from the standpoint of Jim.
Hmm.
But what's curious is um, when he speaks to other enslaved people, he speaks in a very erudite style.
Yeah.
And when he speaks to white people, he um, reverts to the kind of dialect that we're
Yeah.
accustomed to. And there's a number of points where he forgets to do this and is very confusing to white people. It's there's some brilliantly comic touches in that.
Yeah. That's great. Let's move on down some
Yeah.
more.
Okay.
I'm not going to talk about Old Lem because I really want you guys to listen to it. And I can't read it nearly as well as that musical portrayal does. Yeah. Okay. Slim Greer in Hell says Slim Greer is a recurrent character in Sterling A. Brown's poetry. He's the trickster figure. I think it's a really funny poem. Slim Greer went to heaven. St. Peter said, Slim, you've been a right good boy. And he winked at him. You've been traveling rascal in your day. You can roam once more, then you come to stay. Put his wings on your shoulders and save your feet. Slim grinned and he speak up, Thank ye, Pete. Then Peter say, Go to hell and see all that's doing and report to me. Be sure to remember how everything go. Slim says, I be seeing ye on the late watch, Bo. Slim got to cavortin' swell as you choose, like Lindy in the spirit of St. Louis blues. He flew and he flew till at last he hit a hangar with the sign reading, This is it. Then he parked his wings and strolled around, getting used to his feet on the solid ground. Big bloodhound come a roaring like Niagara Falls, sicked on by white devils in overhauls. Now Slim weren't scared, across my heart it's a fact, and the dog went on baying some poor devil's track. Then Slim saw a mansion and walked right in. The devil looked up with a sickly grin. Suddenly didn't look for you, Mr. Greer. How it happens you comes to visit here. Slim say, Oh, just thought I'd drop by a spell. Feel at home, sir, and here's the keys to hell. Then he took Slim around and showed him people raising hell as high as the first church steeple. Lots of folks fighting at the roulette wheel like old Rampart Street or Leetwise Beale. Showed him bawdy houses and cabarets. Slim thought of New Orleans and Memphis days. Each devil was busy with a devilish broad, and Slim cried, Lordy, Lord, Lord, Lord. Took him in a room where Slim see the preacher with a brown skin on each knee. Showed him giant stills going everywhere with a passel of devils stretched dead drunk there. Then he took him to the furnace that some devils was firing, hot as hell, and Slim start a mean perspiring. White devils with pitchforks threw black devils on. Slim thought he'd better be getting along. And he says, this makes me think of home. Vicksburg, Little Rock, Jackson, Waco, and Rome. Then the devil gives Slim a big ha ha and turned into a cracker with a sheriff's star. Slim ran for his wings, lit out from the ground, hauled it back to St. Peter's, safety bound. 3. St. Peter says, well, you got back quick. How's the devil? And what's his latest trick? And Slim say, Peter, I really can't tell. The place was Dixie that I took for hell. Then Peter say, you must be crazy, I vow. Where in hell d'you think hell was anyhow? Get on back to the earth, 'cause I got to fear you's a little too dumb to stay up here. It's
Oh
just,
boy.
Great.
it's just great. Where'd you think hell was anyhow?
That's great.
That's like Sinners, really.
Yeah, like sinners, yeah, it is.
Yeah.
But I love it when he says, thank you, Pete. That's the one that cracks me up the most. Oh my God. Yeah. And the late watch Bo. Okay, Slim Greer in hell.
And then he gets kicked out because he's too stupid, not because he's evil. That is never heard of that before. That's hilarious.
I know. I know.
He's got Charles Lindbergh in the Spirit of St. Louis
Yeah.
there too.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's scroll down some and see where we get to. We're doing fine. Oh, I love this song. I mean, this poem. So, oh, geez. When was it that Derek did this?
The year.
Yeah, we had a colleague, he's not here anymore, African American poet who was a spoken word performer, and he did this in a public performance that was like just amazing. So I'm going to try to read it to you, but I can't do it any like he did. Riverbank Blues. A man get his feet set in a sticky mud bank. A man get yellow water in his blood. No need for hoping, no need for doing. Muddy streams keep him fixed for good. Little muddy, big muddy, Moreau and Osage, Little Mary's, Big Mary's, Cedar Creek. Flood their muddy water round about a man's roots, keep him soaked and stranded, and get him weak. Lazy sun shining on a little cabin, lazy moon glistening over river trees. Old river whispering, lapping against the long roots. Plenty of rest and peace in these. Big mules, black loam, apple and peach trees. But seems like the river washes us down past the rich farms, away from the fat lands, dumps us in some ornery riverbank town. Went down to the river, sat me down and listened. Heard the water talking quiet, quiet like and slow. Ain't no need for hurry. Take your time. Take your time. Heard it saying, baby, here's the way life go. That is what it told me as I watched it slowly rolling. But something way inside me reared up and say, better be moving. Better be traveling. Riverbank would get you if you stay. Towns are sinking deeper, deeper into riverbank, taking on the ways of their sulky old man. Taking on his creepy ways, taking on his evil ways. Best get way a long way while you can. Man got his sea too, like the Mississippi. Ain't got so long for a whole lot longer way. Man better move some, better not get rooted. Muddy water fool you if you stay.
Mm.
It's beautiful, beautiful poem. Mississippi River with its magic and its destructiveness and the exhaustion that settles in living in poverty, living in the mud, living in the floods. But there's also beauty. Black loam, the irony of Mississippi is it's got like the richest soil of all, but by now it's so damaged through, first it was all forest. and then the forest got cut down for cotton. And cotton is an extractive industry that ruins the soil. So then they planted kudzu, which of course is a major problem. I once saw a postcard of a house perched on what looked like a miniature alpine mountain. And that's because the house was holding the soil in place, but everything else had eroded away, you know, after the cotton, like, destroyed the soil. And so they brought in kudzu to control the erosion. And now kudzu has taken over and ruined millions of acres of land. But all of that, and then the pesticides and herbicides to farm. So it's damaged land, environmentally very damaged, but very beautiful at the same time. And then the um, lassitude of the river, the exhaustion that the river seems to be whispering, take your time, take your time. Baby, here's the way life go. Towns are sinking deeper, deeper in the riverbank, taking on the ways of their sulky old man. Yeah. That's just it's such a Delta poem.
And you're an eco poet. What is the status of the ecology movement in Mississippi? Because I also see Mississippi as one of those places that's been really insulted by human endeavors. And I wonder what I
But
wonder what the public thinks about that. Are they environmentalists, or are they just interested in the oil company jobs?
not mostly environmentalists. I mean, Mississippi's really conservative, but also Mississippi is so poor and people need jobs. And they'll take what jobs they can get. Okay. Agriculture, like I think I mentioned this once before. Years ago, there was this woman, Nan Johnson, who came down from Massachusetts with a degree in organic farming, and she was on a USDA grant to try to establish organic farming in the Delta. And she worked with this black lady named Dorothy, and they had to build raised beds. They had to build 82 raised bed gardens because they couldn't plant anything in the soil. The soil,
Mm.
Dan said the soil is like styrofoam. It'll hold something up, but there's no nourishment in it, you know? So it's so ironic because this soil, laid down through millennia, through the floods and so on, the soil is theoretically some of the richest agricultural soil in in the country and even in the world. But by now that's been damaged a lot. The University of Mississippi does have now an environmental studies major, which took 20 years from the time that we kind of set it up as a minor to get approved as a major. And it was really hard for me to even get it started as a minor because certain people in the dean's office would say, "Oh, nobody's ever going to want to be interested in that."
Say the Samir Husni story.
Oh, okay. So there's this one journalism professor. Was he Iranian? Yeah.
Lebanese, but it
Lebanese.
doesn't matter
Okay.
what
No,
he
it doesn't
was.
matter. But he said, well, if you're going to set up an environmental studies program, then you're going to have to give equal time to the opposing points of view.
Oh God.
What is there but the opposing point of view in this state,
Well,
Um,
it's not just that, it's that if you're trying to find out the truth about things,
yeah,
if you're not, then you shouldn't be
yeah,
teaching in the university. But
yeah,
if you are, it shouldn't be predetermined what you have to figure, how
yeah,
you're going to come out.
yeah. So, I mean, there are people doing really good stuff with environmental work in this state, working hard at it. But then the whole kind of drive of the state is not environmental in its thinking. Now, here's an interesting paradox. Probably the major force for environmental preservation is Ducks Unlimited, which of course is a major hunting organization for duck hunting. But they want to preserve the land so they can go hunt ducks. And so that's been responsible in the South for a lot of land preservation, which, take it where you can get it. That's cool. Um,
As far back as Thoreau was not a hunter since his boyhood, but he said, the hunters actually care about
the land.
the animals and the land.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's still true even around in California. I think that's still true.
Yeah. Yeah.
The the uh, the interesting thing that Anne's talking about is that the delta is flat as a fritter. It's just like the Central Valley of California. It was like a riverbed, but they it's rich because it's between two major rivers, and it's all that soil gets washed in the floods between the Yazoo and the Mississippi. And but you can eventually kill the soil, which is
Yeah.
what they do. You just overfarm, monoculture, monoculture, and so on.
And crop dusting.
Pesticides
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
herbicides.
Yeah. Crop dusting. I mean, you'll see the crop dusters. I know of I've had two grad students in the past whose mothers died from following the mosquito spray trucks and from living in Delta
Oh my
where the crop
God.
dusters came. They died of cancer as, early 40s. I mean, they were in their early 40s when they died. So it's pretty serious. And it's hard. There's a really, really good new book by Ralph Eubanks, who's an African American. Um, he's a writer in residence and kind of cultural journalist at the University of Mississippi's Center for the Study of Southern Culture. We were telling Neil about this book, and it's called When Darkness Comes to the Delta. And I would really recommend it. It's brilliant because he's got different chapters about different places in the Delta, um, and the struggles that they face, and it's very much about the lives of Black people in the Delta, but it's also about the land. It's about, what the casinos have not brought. It's about educational setbacks. It's about farming cooperatives and the pushback against Black-owned farming cooperatives by white landowners. So you can learn so much about the Delta by reading this book, which is intensely readable, very pleasurable to read. I mean, it's grim, but the writing style is very, very accessible and very narrative because both his parents went to Tuskegee and then they came to live in the Delta and to be, important educators and involved with this farming cooperative. So he comes by his knowledge of the Delta through his whole entire life, pretty cool book.
The subtitle is How America's Richest Soil Became Its Poorest Land.
Yeah,
The title is When It's Darkness on the Delta.
yeah, yeah.
I
So,
thought found interesting in this poem the two different ways that the river works. On the one hand, it's kind of it's a symbol of acceptance. Slow down, take the space. You get your feet rooted in it. On the other hand, it's dangerous if you fall for that. There's also this imperative to move forward, to not be accepted. And so I think he's kind of alluding to that dichotomy there.
yeah, because to be accepted here is to live in grinding poverty, probably with hookworm, you know? Um, it's like, yeah, it's tempting just to kind of sit until you die. But then this desire to like get out, and he's writing this during those years of the Great Migration when, Black people would move north to Chicago or to Memphis or to New York, to Detroit, trying to find, I mean, Richard Wright writes a lot about this, trying to find much more equal opportunity, trying to find jobs, trying to find to be treated like, human beings. And then, of course, Richard Wright says like it was as bad up north as it was in the South. So he eventually just moved to France and lived there for the whole last decades of his life. Yeah.
So it's interesting when you that we've gone completely into a different vernacular, and yet this is very tightly scripted. It's all he's very dedicated to the rhyme.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Which is interesting, which is very formal in that way.
Hmm.
You know, uh,
Yeah.
Yeah. The knowledge of rhythm and rhyme that he got partly from black music and songs and partly from Robert Frost and E.A. Robinson and I think A.E. Housman too, served him well. And even in that early poem, Return, which is a pretty dull poem, there's both sincere feeling and a kind of
Technical
ability to
history.
use rhythm and rhyme without just tripping over your own feet all the time.
Yeah. I mean, it's a beautifully written poem. Metrically, very, very interesting. A man get his feet set in a sticky mud bank. A man get his yellow feet, get the yellow water in his blood. You don't want the yellow water in your blood. There's malaria, there's hookworm, there's mud. No need for hoping, no need for doing. Muddy streams keep him fixed for good, you know?
I think there's also a hint that by the river, at least you won't starve. You know, there are fish and there's some arable soil, and it may be a miserable life, but you know what it is,
Yeah,
you're used to it, and it's kind of scary to move on, but there's this
yeah.
need to move on.
Laurel, take care. Thank you for your note.
Yeah, I sorry I'm going to miss, but I have like a 3 hour meeting for a clinical trial.
Oh,
Aid and Safety Monitoring Board, and
yeah.
one of the things we do, I'm on a bunch of those DSMBs. So
Well, we'll miss you.
I'm actually going tomorrow night to see Rent with our granddaughter in it, and I know it's going to remind me of all the years I spent working on AIDS clinical trials. So
Oh,
we'll see
yeah.
you next
Oh,
Thursday.
yeah. Yeah. Let's see, what's the next poem down below this? Because we might have time to look quickly at one more. Oh gosh, Southern Road. I want to read this one. Having taught at Parchman, and Parchman was a chain gang prison for a long, long time. The last chain gang was outlawed in Alabama in the 1980s.
Wow.
Southern Road. Swing that hammer. Huh. Steady boy. Swing that hammer. Huh. Steady boy. Ain't no rush, baby. Long ways to go. Burner tore his, black heart away. Burner tore his, black heart away. Get me life, baby, and a day. Gals on Fifth Street, huh? Sun done gone. Gals on Fifth Street, huh? Sun done gone. Wife's in a war, baby. Babe's not born. My old man died, huh? Cussing me. My old man died, huh? Cussing me. Old lady rocks, baby. Huh, misery. Devil shack, huh? Guard behind. Devil shackled, huh? Guard behind. Ball and chain, baby. On my mind. White man tells me, huh, damn you soul. White man tell me, huh, damn you soul. Got no need, baby, to be told. Chain gang never, huh, let me go. Chain gang never, huh, let me go. Polos boy, baby, evermore. Since a lot of the people I taught are in for life without a hope of parole, this poem really gets to me, you know?
What's a burner?
Burner, Taurus, huh? Black Heart Away. I don't know what that is.
Somebody's name, I think.
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah, probably.
I think it is. Got me life, baby, in a day. Yeah. And people were sent to Parchman back in the early parts of the 20th century for selling food or for, you know, not being properly deferential to a white person. People
Yeah.
were lynched. There was a lynch. Somebody was lynched. I saw this at the Civil Rights Museum in Jackson for like not stepping off the sidewalk for somebody. It's like it wasn't just killers that were sent to the chain gang. And you had the trustees, mounted on the horses who could shoot at will. A really, really good book to read. I don't know if you guys have heard of it or read it. Is by Jessamine Ward and it's called Sing Unburied. Sing. And part of that is about Parchman, and it's just a really amazing novel. Jessamine Ward is a African American writer who lives in southern Mississippi, and her two novels in a row won the National Book Award. She's quite young and very beautiful and very soft spoken, and just an amazing novelist. So, Sing Unburied Sing is just an amazing book. I recommend it to you. Neil, have you read it? Actually, let's go away from
Yeah.
screen sharing. Did you say you have read it?
I haven't read that one. I've read two of her other ones. The one about the kids that have, all the oh
The
God, what's it
Katrina
called?
one?
The one about the all the men who died.
Oh, yeah. Was
Men
Oh,
buried.
no, it's not Men We Buried. It's The Men We Reaped.
men,
Men.
men, yeah, men we reap. Yeah, she's
Yeah,
really good.
she
Yeah,
is. She's amazing. She's
yeah.
amazing. Yeah. So, how are we doing with Sterling A. Brown? Gonna make little Southerners of you all.
I mean, reading this poetry in dialect, it just makes me think of this big fuss that everybody made about Ebonics in the schools. I mean, how ignorant to take this whole rich linguistic tradition and demonize it in that way. I mean, it's such a horrible thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. I mean, one thing I like best about living in the South is the orality of it, the amazing variety of voices and phrases, idioms, and just the expressiveness of when you're not always trying to sound, like proper and college educated in King James English. I mean, it's really cool. Like so I have this passion for picking up pecans. I think I mentioned it's a
Yeah,
real obsession. Neil is eating some of those pecans.
I am.
Like, stop, stop, don't give me more. Um, but before the ice storm, I gathered 62 pounds of pecans, and then we drive them over to Batesville, and they shell them in these old-fashioned pecan crackers. And now I have two more grocery bags ready to take over. But I was talking to there was this old black guy one day as I was picking up pecans and he was picking up pecans, and we started talking a little bit, and he goes, them squirrels. Them loves the pecans. Those are the squirrels, so now we call them the squows. He goes, I can't eat the pecans. I ain't got no teeth. But this is great. Them squows eat all the pecans. This is great. It's like, it's so alive, you know?
And what was that word you used? Dicty?
Dicty,
How,
D-I-C-T,
how do you spell that? I can't believe I've never heard this word before.
D-I-C-T-Y, Dicty.
Zora Neale Hurston uses it. She's not interested in people who are dick.
No. Do you guys know about Zora Neale Hurston? Know her work?
Yeah.
Yes.
Leslie does for sure.
It
Yeah.
it
I
might come.
really like her stuff. She does a lot of folklore stories too.
Yeah, she does. She
Yeah.
does. She got pretty far into voodoo too, and then it scared the devil out of her. Have you read
Ah,
Tell Me More?
Literally.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean she really started getting terrified. I think she went to Haiti and started getting initiated into some voodoo stuff and then backed away. Yeah.
Mm. The thing about dialect, so two things I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about Joel Chandler Harris and how he was just, um, people were really down on him for the Brer Rabbit tales and all that. But he did, the linguists all say he did an absolutely very accurate rendition of what Gullah and Geechee dialects were. But he was white.
Hmm.
He's not allowed to do that.
Hmm.
And then, Brian, you were mentioning James, but I really disliked that book a lot. And I know that's not the popular thing because it's on everybody's novel, to read list. But that's not the way language works. People who are Black only hearing the voices around them are not going to somehow be speaking the King's English. And they're not secretly speaking a language form they've never heard and then putting on a Black language to defer to the white people. It just didn't ring true to me.
And the
Oh, I
language
had no
you
suspicion that it was true.
No, I don't mean that it's true, but it seemed more like the author's wish list of how he would like it to have been.
well, you can be highly intelligent and use what's thought of as an ignorant vernacular and use it beautifully, as I think Jim does in Mark Twain's novel. and
Yeah,
you can be highly educated, speak standard English perfectly, and not have anything of any interest to say.
I know,
But
but I
the
just remember
assumption that linguistic markers are a sign of intelligence or the absence of it, I agree with you. It's a very tricky proposition, and I think misleading.
yeah,
I mean, Mark Twain knew that there were black men who had that kind of sophistication and could speak the King's English. There is that man with the top hat and the cane who uh, pa Finn like elbows off the sidewalk. But Jim isn't that man, and I think he's a great character. I agree that there's a certain amount of vaudeville in the exchanges between him and Huckleberry Finn, but it still seems authentic and believable and very moving that Jim wants freedom but doesn't actually question the system more than Huck does. To stand outside that and say, I have a politically correct position, and I'm going to embody it in a character that I'm going to insert in Huckleberry Finn doesn't seem to me a useful thing to do.
yeah.
So how y'all doing with Sterling A. Brown? Pretty
Like
cool.
it. Good.
Yeah,
Good.
Yeah.
he's it really is different from Robert Hayden.
Hmm.
I really like Robert Hayden, and this is like a complete shift, and they're both doing wonders with the language.
Yeah, I love it. I might send you guys just a couple of uh Gwendolyn what's her name? Gwendolyn Brooke
Gwendolyn Brooks. Yeah.
poems because I'm not sure how much more Robert Hayden poems we have to talk about. There's not a ton online.
Sterling Brown.
Sterling A. Brown, I'm sorry, Sterling
Yeah.
A. Brown. Yeah, I'm getting okay. So I might want to just segue a couple of Gwendolyn Brooks poems um into our time with Sterling A. Brown next time, and then after that we'll move on to Elizabeth Bishop. Okay, so let's
Good.
look for that.
Yep.
Good. Okay, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank
A
you,
good
Ann.
couple days. Yeah.
Okay.
Take care.